are charged with using it to construct a result that we all want. One of the things that we have done this year in the effort to make the program more enforceable, to make those who use the tool more accountable for how well they use it, is a couple of provisions we put into the notice of proposed rulemaking that went out last spring and on which I am now, with my colleagues here, working to complete as a final rule. The first of these is what we call the accountability provision. Because we are in a program subject to constitutional scrutiny, as Mr. Chism mentioned, we cannot simply say there must be X percentage of minority or disadvantaged businesses getting work in a program. You simply can't name a number and say you've got to hit that number or you're not complying. That will get us thrown out in a constitutional case in a heartbeat. So we say there are a bunch of procedures in the rule that you have to follow. You need to certify the right people. You need to set goals in a sensible way that will withstand scrutiny. And then you need to do your best to implement those goals. And we said in the notice of proposed rulemaking, we want you, and the you here is the state of Minnesota, an airport, a transit authority. If having set a goal for the use of disadvantaged businesses over a given period of time, you find yourself falling short of that goal, you're not violating the rules simply by falling short of the goal, by failing to hit the number, but you need to understand why you may be falling short of that goal. So we say, if you fall short of the goal, then come up with an analysis, an explanation of what it was that caused you to fall short of that goal. And the second piece of this is then come up with a series of corrective actions to fix that shortfall if the reason was that there were too many good faith waivers being granted too readily, if the problem is that there weren't contracts that were being structured to facilitate participation by small businesses. Could be any number of reasons, but the point is we want recipients who fall short of their goals to take a good hard look at the reasons for that, to understand it, not simply to say, well, that's the breaks. So it's a two-piece requirement: one, analysis; two, setting up some corrective actions. And that's something which we, USDOT, the Federal Highway Administration, the other DOT operating administrations, are going to take a look at, particularly with respect to the larger recipients like state DOTs. Second piece, and this is sort of more to the oversight than the accountability part of the perspective, one of the things that we've been most concerned about is that, we have contract goals. Let's say a prime contractor names a DBE as the DBE that's going to be used to meet the goal. And then oftentimes, even though there has been a monitoring requirement in the regulation all along, many times our impression is, and this is an impression that is confirmed by our so-called national review team that the Federal Highway Administration has been sending around to various states, no one really knows much about whether the DBE actually does the work when it comes to the end of the day for which DBE credit is being claimed. And there are some really egregious cases of fraud that have arisen as a result. I'm presently involved in a case in Pennsylvania, for example, where a non-minority, in this case actually large subcontractor, used an out-of-state DBE as a front to pass through work claimed for credit. And somehow, and I'm not quite sure I understand how, this went on for 15 years before somebody finally caught on to it. There's a prosecution, criminal prosecution going on right now in federal court in Pennsylvania, but to me it's both sort of astonishing and dismaying that someone could conduct this kind of fraud for a lengthy period of time and have no one notice. Well, we want people to notice. And for that reason, we have a provision in the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. And understand, this is, by the way, a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. It's not final yet, although I'm working hard to get it to the point of being final, where we say the recipient, the state, the airport, the transit authority, needs to monitor both the paperwork and the job site to make sure that the DBE is actually doing the work it's claimed that it's doing, and that it certify that it has conducted that monitoring and that this stuff is on the up and up. So those two steps in our Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, the accountability provision and the monitoring oversight provision, if you will, I think, are additional tools in the toolkit to help us get to not only people following the procedures of the rule, but actually being able to achieve the results that we'd like to see as a result of that. I mean, all of this said, this program has never been about guaranteeing results. It's trying to guarantee, as best we can, a level playing field on which DBEs can compete. But we have never claimed, and I think constitutionally could not claim, that anything about this program would absolutely guarantee a result, a particular percentage of participation or anything like that. On the other hand, if people are falling way short, I think it gives us at federal DOT additional tools to hold the feet of the recipient agency to the fire, to make them explain, well, if your goal was 10% and your participation was 2%, how come? How come, and what can you do about it? And that is what this accountability provision is about. It's not a panacea, not going to be, there are no panaceas in this world. But I think it should help us help and or nudge the recipients to make sure that things just don't slide. So